Is there anything in here that can set him off? And trying to do all these extra things to make everything happy and wonderful and all the things you think he might like. And then even in arguments, you're reducing yourself and you're constantly trying to think, like, hear his side and, whatever. And it's not a logical side, but you don't know that at the time. And so you lose yourself and you put him up on a pedestal to survive.
About that, but
how did you, Nikki, get into a position where you understood enough about narcissism and your experience with your husband to speak on it intelligently and confidently? Like, was there anything in your life previously that led you to this, or was it this experience exactly that brought you?
So I am
it was all me.
I didn't have
The
any
guinea pig.
personal experience with narcissism before. Where it's at really is that I have ADHD and I hyperfocus on things that are incredibly important to me for a moment. And I have a history of, like, my education is in research. And so, and then growing up, my sister had health issues. She was born with congenital heart issues. And I watched my mom. She had a Merck manual and she would just sit there and investigate, trying to find out, like, what is wrong with my child, because the doctors weren't helpful. And so I learned from that. Yeah. We called my mom the private eye because she'll find it out. Like, she'll find the information, she'll figure you out, like, whatever, you're not getting away with anything. And so all that kind of combined to where when I was in the thick of all the pain, the first year of our marriage, and I was going, something's not right. I was very determined to figure out what was going on. And it was actually because he flip-flopped so much between, like, terrifying and, like, over the top, and then kind of, like, rational and normal. I was like, are we dealing, and I didn't know anything about bipolar at the time to know enough to realize that doesn't fit. But I was just kind of searching, and I came across an article on vulnerable narcissism, and I was just like, oh, this is it. Oh my God.
Ding, 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 ding,
I did.
ding, ding.
And I printed it out and, like, highlighted the spots, and I sat there, and then I was on a deep dive, and so once I was on the deep dive, I had, like, all the little papers I could find, and then I marinated on it, and I realized that I couldn't stay because there was nothing in that
There was no
positive.
exit route. Yeah.
There wasn't hey, just bring this to their attention and you're good.
Just ring this bell and he'll be better. Don't worry.
Yeah. And there's there's no counseling for it because narcissists don't seek help. So nobody has experience doing anything with it. And so you kind of just look at it. And that was when I kind of realized, like, I'm in danger. Even if it's just emotionally, I am in danger of losing myself in this. And I had stayed for a while sure that it was the Holy Spirit telling me, you have this indoctrination of you can absolutely, like,
Can't leave your husband.
you can't. And it's my job to basically do whatever he wants. That's what I grew up in certain churches. Yep. And all that does is create potting soil for the weed of narcissism. You're just, like, fertilizing it and watering it. And I kind of got to the point where I was like, I don't care. I don't care. God can talk to me about it later. Like, this is not good. And I had a group of girls, my Bible study girls, who loved me and knew me. And they had been kind of speaking at me like, this isn't normal. We love you. We're here for you, but this isn't good. Like, I don't like what this is doing with you. And so I kind of, I guess with the Holy Spirit's, like, I was like, all right, I'm doing it. And I printed all the resources out and I wrote, like, a 3-page letter. And I feel like the Holy Spirit led that letter because I wasn't angry in it. I just was like, I am not safe with you. Like, these things are happening and I wish they were different, but it's not. And this is where it is. And I think this is what you have going on. And I don't know what to do about that. I don't have the resources for that. And funny enough, I don't have the letter. I saved, like, so many things. I have no idea where that one is. It might be on a hard drive somewhere. I don't know. But And I packed up and I left. And which was 5 minutes down the road to my parents' house. So it wasn't like I was like traveling state
Went to
lines or anything.
Massachusetts.
Called me
Yeah.
from South Dakota. Hey,
Yeah.
did you get my letter?
So, and he was at work, and I rolled out, and he actually called me later that night, and I was like, looking at the phone ringing, and I was like, I was waiting to just hear just screaming, and he just was really quiet, and he goes, I know you don't want to talk to me right now. I will not keep you. And he just said, but I think you're right, and I think you need to know that. And then we talked for a few more minutes, and that was kind of it. And it was just kind of like one of those moments where you're like, wow. And then honestly, I spent the next 2 weeks detoxing because you don't realize how messed up your thinking gets. Like,
Sure.
one of the things I talk about with my ladies, I call them my ladies, but is how being in a relationship with an abuser or a narcissist, they become your idol. And you don't want it to be. It's not a conscious choice. You're not placing anything above God like, yeah, this is a great idea. It's out of fear and survival because you have to walk on eggshells, because you constantly have to keep them happy. And you're always looking around going, is there anything in here that could upset the apple cart? Is there anything in here that can set him off? And trying to do all these extra things to make everything happy and wonderful and all the things you think he might like. And then even in arguments, you're reducing yourself and you're constantly trying to think like, hear his side and, whatever. And it's not a logical side, but you don't know that at the time. And so you lose yourself and you put him up on a pedestal to survive. And this most terrifying part, I think, of all of it was when I realized that the voice I was listening to that I thought was the Holy Spirit wasn't. It was my trauma. And it was my fear. And so I was staying with him and I was doing all these things thinking I was following the Holy Spirit and I was following my damage, which is like, I get goosebumps now thinking about it. Just like, you're like, oh my gosh, I would have been sitting there thinking I was following the Lord. And I did do that for a while. And so it's so hard because you really have to get away for a bit to let the fog clear, because I had to be safe for a couple of weeks to realize how unsafe I had been and how warped I had become.
Yeah, well, it's like I think a proper equation would be like the warriors don't know how bad the battlefield is until they're home,
Yeah.
right?
That's when
you're
it
just
starts really
in it.
settling
You're just
in.
there. You're like next thing,
You're surviving.
and then you get home and it's like that is not how life is supposed to be.
Yeah.
Whoa.
You become numb.
PTSD, right?
Yeah.
Post.
Yeah.
Right?
You
Yep.
become numb to it, and it's weird. Like certain things you get used to. It's scary what you could get used to it, and that's.
Well, you live in fight or flight. And I started having so many health issues. And I kept thinking like, maybe it's this autoimmune condition. Maybe it's this. And you're like, and because I got to chase stuff and I'm chasing down rabbit trails left and right.
More
And
stress and cortisol and survival mode. And
yeah,
that's
it was
your
very
body just
much,
fails.
yeah, I couldn't handle it. And I have pre-existing health issues, which then when you add in all that, I was what we call a hot mess. And just, I saw myself even, it's this dumb stuff. Like I wanted to have a baby at the time, which is really stupid. Like it makes no logical sense. But what I wanted was someone who loved me.
Yeah.
And I figured it out like partway in. I was like, I just want to have someone who looks at me and doesn't hate me and doesn't say horrible things to me and who would just look at me in love and I would be their whole world instead of what I had. I was so lonely and so broken in it.
Did you think that it would help him too? No, that wasn't part of it.
No,
I hope no.
it had nothing to do with him,
I
honestly.
mean, some people do. Some people think that
They
bringing
do.
a child
I
will
know.
change.
That was not something I was, that was not my particular thing. It was more, and honestly, once we had the baby and we had a relapse, it was the most terrifying thing ever because I realized I couldn't just walk away anymore. I was trapped in a way that I never could be. And I had to protect this little life. And so all of a sudden I couldn't just say, well, I'm out. I had to sit there and think about, I guess I have to stay and be a shield. So I just get to stay and get beat up on to try and protect this child. And it,
Not beat it like.
yeah.
Yeah.
Emotional beating.
Yeah. I mean that may
Which is just
exist
as
for other
powerful.
people,
Yeah.
but contextually
Yeah.
is all.
So
Yeah, well,
it's not like what you
I think just real quick is it's very important to note that emotional and physical abuse in the way you're talking about, especially in terms of being a shield for your children, they're very similar.
Well, they've done studies, and I feel like I've come across them, is that emotional abuse is much more damaging than physical.
Yeah.
Longer lasting.
And
takes
in
longer to
reality,
heal from.
physical abuse is literally just the manifestation of all the emotional.
of
They
course,
just
yeah.
escalated to a point that
Yeah.
now it's physical, but the
Exactly.
emotional abuse is what has wrecked this person.
Yep.
And they're just solidifying it.
Sure.
with-
Definitely. Right, because you don't hear most people talking about